So, One Great Earth, my name is Dan. Thank you for joining me today. We have a few interesting stories to get into today. One that we'll start off first is Brazil's Pantanal wetland. Record-breaking fires consume Brazil's Pantanal wetland. The largest tropical wetland on Earth is ablaze, with fires in June breaking historical records for that month. While aerial views of the wetland show smoke rising in the bright orange of burning fires, a closer look at burnt vegetation found charred skeletons of wildlife. Brazil's Pantanal, the largest tropical wetland on Earth, is ablaze, with fires in June breaking historical records. Wanted to make sure. Just wanted to make sure I was live, my microphone, everything's working all fine, so that's good. Continue. Brazil's National Institute of Space Research, INPE, has detected 733 fires in the Pantanal biome so far this month, with the previous record for fires in Pantanal for June being 435 registered in 2005. The state of Mato Grosso do Sul, which encompasses 60% of the Brazilian Pantanal, is under a danger warning for a heat wave expected to hit with temperatures 5 degrees Celsius higher than average for the next 3 to 5 days, according to Brazil's National Meteorology Institute. The World Wildlife Foundation Brazil has warned that the entire year of 2024 could become the worst year in record for the Pantanal, as the dry season is just beginning, and the number of fires this year already represents an increase in 898% compared to the same period in 2023, according to IMPE's data. It is necessary to act quickly, reinforcing fire brigades and counting with the support of the local communities to avoid a catastrophe. This is a very alarming burnt monkey. A burnt monkey amongst burnt vegetation in the Pantanal, the world's largest wetland, in Caramba, Mato Grosso do Sul State, Brazil, June 11, 2024. What to know about the wetlands? That Pantanal's distinctive habitats rely on what scientists call the flood pulse. During the wet season between November and March, 3/4 of the plain gets flooded, and it sounds like a lot like the in South Sudan wetland there, only for much of the water to drain away during the dry months from April to September. This seasonal flooding makes the Pantanal a unique biome where large swaths of land regularly turn from terrestrial into aquatic habitats and back again. Wetlands like the Pantanal are Earth's most effective carbon sinks, ecosystems that absorb and store more carbon than they release, keeping it away from the atmosphere. At roughly 200,000 square kilometers, the Pantanal comprises 3% of the globe's wetland and plays a key role in the carbon cycle. When these carbon-rich ecosystems burn, vast amounts of heat-trapping gases are released back into the atmosphere, contributing to the greenhouse effect. According to the World Wild Fund for Nature, known as the World Wildlife Fund in the US and Canada, the Pantanal boasts the greatest concentration of wildlife in South America, higher than that of its more famous northern neighbor, the Amazon. The Pantanal is very important for the planet. It has unique wild areas that are fundamental to life on Earth, said Andre Luiz Sequeira, the CEO of ECOA, an environmental NGO based on the Brazilian state of Mato Grosso do Sul, speaking to CNN in 2020. The area is home to thousands of endangered or unusual species, including jaguars, capybaras, black caimans, giant otters, and high-cap macaws. It's also an important stop on the routes of about 180 species of migratory birds. The wetland is facing a hydrological crisis scenario due to an intense drought. The lack of rain began in 2023 and has been aggravated by the ongoing El Niño phenomenon, according to ECOA. Occasional wildfires are normal in the Pantanal, so much that some plants in the region develop resistance to fires, for example, by growing thick bark or covering their seeds with hard shells. In 2020, the fires destroyed unique habitats and wrecked the livelihoods of many of the Pantanal's diverse indigenous communities. That's terrible to read, terrible to hear. Our next story. Breaks your heart. Race to save 22 banyan trees uprooted by tornado. Banyan trees are these firs that are like weeping willows, kind of, where they have all these branches that come out from the bottom. Amazing, amazing trees. So they're trying to reroot these 22 trees that are. Let's find out. As cleanup in Hobay Sound continues in wake of Wednesday's EF1 tornado, the race is on to save Martin County historic banyan trees on Bridge Road. The National Weather Service said the tornado hit Hobay Sound at 10:40 a.m., likely touching down just west of U.S. Highway 1 and continuing east along Bridge Road before crossing the St. Lucia River into Jupiter Island. Wednesday, authorities confirmed the tornado felled 22 of the historic ficus trees lining Bridge Road's banyan tree tunnel. To rush to save them is underway, and it's a big deal. It's very sad to see this, said Hobay Sound resident Karen Mitri. Get some tree people out here and help. Drive through the magical, whimsical landmark, and you'll feel like you're in a fairy tale. It's the reason the iconic tunnel is a draw for tourists and is almost on every Martin County must-see list. It's amazing. The sun, especially for this time of year, shines right down there. People take wedding shots here all the time. It's just sad. It's an area that I ride pretty much regularly, and it's a beautiful area, added another resident. Just to see the trees down, my in-laws walk this area pretty much almost every day. My daughter just had her senior pictures here. So far, crews uprighted at least 4 big ficus trees and worked to start rerouting them and uprighting the rest. Their goal is to clear the roadway and preserve these historic trees, said Martin County Fire Rescue Division Chief Rocco Napoli. Worried that you're going to lose the trees, said Kitts. Breaks your heart, said Paula Cooper MacArthur. I was surprised it probably the better word, added her brother, Harry MacArthur, to see that many of them were taken down. You didn't think it could happen. Harry MacArthur owns the iconic Harry and the Natives restaurant just up the road from the tunnel, while Cooper MacArthur wrote the book Hobay Sound History. Their parents moved to Martin County in the 1950s, and the brother and sister are the people to ask when it comes to all things Hobay Sound. Both said the ficus trees' iconic roots run deep. This is what they looked like when they were so small, said Cooper MacArthur, showing WPTV's case. We'll see pictures of when they were first planted, which is all thanks to Joseph and Parmelia Reed, the founding Jupiter Island family and environmental icons. The Nathaniel P. Reed Hobay Sound National Wildlife Refuge is named after their son. The couple moved to Jupiter Island for Connecticut in 1932 with the goal of preserving the area's nature. The MacArthur siblings said the Reeds planted the banyan trees on the Jupiter Island side of the bridge in the late 1930s to early 1940s, while the rest of the trees were added in the late 1940s to the early 1950s. These trees are old. They were just so beautiful and significant to the entrance of Jupiter Island, which is what they wanted to sustain, said Cooper MacArthur. The magical tunnel we know and love is thanks entirely to their efforts and the efforts of those who have continued to maintain and preserve the tunnel. The trees, now nearly 100 years old, have stood the test of time through many a storm and development. Cooper and MacArthur said that after the hurricanes, Francis and Jean, some of the trees were damaged, but a landscaper came in and re-supported the trees. Both siblings said the tunnel has never sustained this much damage from a storm. It's kind of unbelievable. It's sad that we've been riding down that road all of our lives. We used to go to the beach every day, so we knew that every road every day. The trees are a big part of our lives, said Harry MacArthur. That's why county crews worked until about 1 a.m. Thursday to save the trees and came right back out early in the morning to continue the work to keep many of Martin County's oldest residents around. That's been the one constant. That's exactly the trees, is the constant folks don't want to see leave. They don't want to see them gone. That's good. Crews said that they'll likely work through the night Thursday to continue clearing the trees off the road. Martin County's Fire Rescue Corey Pippin also said the intersection of Gomez and Bridge Roads was the last area of concern crews were continuing to clear Thursday. All other roadways were back open to traffic. These are some pretty iconic trees. I've seen pictures of these before. They're almost 100 years old as well, so it is a devastating loss to ecology or ecosystem. Because the world needs these trees. Not that the state or the county needs these trees. These kind of trees are just iconic. Especially with the redwoods in Florida. Did you know that redwood were in Florida too? Yeah. Florida doesn't really care much about its environment, and it's going to catch up with them this year, undoubtedly. There's no way they're going to go through another summer that's not going to be a scorcher, a killer. Disease running all over the place. They lose their mangroves on the shores of all their beaches, and all of their sand is lost. These are consequences of what they've done, what they've ignored, and what they've punished for bringing up. Florida cannot deflect and defend itself going forward whenever they have to answer to billions of dollars of damages. They want to be able to still declare a state of emergency based on the weather, but not admit that the flooding was the reason why they declared a state of emergency. It's really insane. Alright, on to our next story. Bird flu traces emerge in Austin sewage far from dairy farms. Fragments of a potentially dangerous bird flu virus that appeared in Austin wastewater. This is from the Detroit News, by the way. In Austin wastewater, miles from the nearest dairy farms, are sending researchers on a race to find the source. Texas researchers are tracing pieces of the H5N1 virus that were confirmed in Austin's sewage last week to see if they came from infected farm animals. While birds are dumped milk, Anthony Moriso, lead researcher of the Texas Wastewater Environmental Biomonitoring Network, said in an email. Unreported human cases, while unlikely, are also a possibility, he said. These are 3 influenza A, H5N1 bird flu virus particles, rod-shaped. Couldn't see them in real life. They're not like that. Their electron micrograph's been inverted, so they had to do a lot to be able to get these to show up. It is truly still a mystery, said Moriso, who is also a Baylor College of Medicine virologist. The sequencing indicates there can be multiple sources. Health officials are struggling to keep up with the flu virus that has been reported in 90 cattle herds nationwide. 3 U.S. dairy workers with mild symptoms have tested positive this year, 1 of them in Texas, 2 of them in Michigan, and the risk to the public remains low. Still, bird flu has been known to cause lethal disease in rare cases. Oh yeah, and that person that died in Mexico in April, they originally thought that it was due to bird flu, but they ended up saying that it was due to other complications. The person was diabetic and a whole bunch of other things. So it wasn't the bird flu that got the person, and that would have been the first death due to bird flu. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants human transmission, animal to animal transmission of bird flu, mammal to mammal transmission of bird flu. That potential cattle to human transmission really needs to be focused on, said Adriani Castellotti, Chief of Government and Public Affairs of the National Association of County and City Health Officials. Health officials need to ramp up surveillance to identify any shift in the behavior of the virus that might signal ability for wider spread, she said. Testing reluctance. Farms and dairy workers have resisted testing for H5N1 due to risk of lost milk production or income. That's left researchers sift through wastewater to map out the virus's location. While the approach can gather signals from large geographical areas, it leaves the problem of finding exactly where the virus is living or who or what is infected. The Texas Wastewater Group is trying to answer those questions by comparing genetic material found in sewage with samples from plausible sources such as poultry, cows, and milk. The wastewater samples are from 2 sites that encompasses 95% of Austin's population, which could include some small agricultural farms, according to Desmer Wilkes, Chief Medical Officer for Austin Public Health. There are no known permitted dairy farms whose sewage goes into the Austin system, according to city officials. And although there may be backyard animals such as poultry that might be sources, no human cases have been reported in the city. Either an animal source or parts of the virus in raw and commercial milk are good and reasonable guesses. H5N1 is likely spreading in cattle through contaminated equipment and clothing, researchers at the U.S. Department of Agriculture said Thursday on a call. Raw milk continues to be a point of exposure, and farm cats have died after consuming it. Pasteurization is thought to kill the virus, and humans should avoid consuming raw milk. Do not drink unpasteurized milk, according to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Migrant labor. Almost 80% of the U.S. milk supply comes from farms employing migrant laborers, many of whom hesitate to seek medical care even when they're ill. That reluctance poses another barrier to understanding whether more human cases are present on farms. Testing for influenza A, a category of viruses that include H5, usually ends in the spring. Trying to get a handle on spread, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention is recommending that health officials extend that testing through the summer. The agency is also considering broadening this testing guidelines for bird flu and welcomes states to refer anyone with likely exposure to come forward for testing. Narav Shah, Principal Deputy Director of the U.S. Center for Disease and Control and Prevention, said on Thursday call. At least 45 people have been tested for H5N1 nationwide, Shah said. 2 cases of the bird flu have been reported in Michigan, which has invited the CDC to conduct additional surveillance. Each state is creating its own monitoring efforts in partnership with agricultural departments, leaving a patchwork of data that is concerning to health officials in understanding the virus outside of wastewater monitoring. The variation in efforts between states is concerning, said Delenia Garcia, Chief Program Officer of International and Emerging Issues at the Migrant Clinicians Network, a nonprofit community health group based in Austin. The public health system is set up in such a way that they can't act quickly, Garcia said. If you have something that can spread that easily through a population of animals who are then in very close quarters with human beings, I'm very worried. That was from the Detroit News regarding bird flu being found far from dairy farms in Austin, Texas. Alright. This was going to be a short one today. I thank you for watching. Thank you for liking the stream, subscribing to the channel. It helps me out immensely and keeps me motivated in doing more episodes like this. Just chaining them together. Please check out my previous videos if you are interested in any more of my work. Alright. That's all I have for now. Please take care. Wait a minute, I got this article here. Inactivation of avian influenza A H5N1 virus and raw milk at 63 degrees Celsius and 72 degrees Celsius. Those are the 2 temperatures that are used in commercial pasteurization. Interesting. At 72 degrees Celsius, we measured a decrease in infectious virus by a factor of 10 to the power of 4 within 5 seconds. However, we also detected infectious virus just above the assay limit of detection for as long as 20 seconds at 70 degrees Celsius. This finding indicates the potential for a relatively small but detectable quantity of H5N1 virus to remain infectious in milk. After 15 seconds at 72 degrees Celsius, if the initial titer is sufficiently high, at least under these specific experimental conditions. Yeah, so milk is a pastime. Right. I don't want to read all that here, but it's a very interesting article. Reminds me a lot of COVID. During the COVID days, early COVID days, having sewage, like over here, and this sewage system with detected COVID particles reminds me a lot of that. So hopefully, it's, like these systems are still in play, and they didn't do away with any pandemic-related systems that would better get this information to the people that need it the most. All right. Thank you once again. Please take care.